Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to Researcher's Desk. It's an enormous pleasure to welcome Jonas Roupé. Jonas is going to speak with us today about ecocide law and systemic change. I've listened to Jonas before and I've seen the work he's doing, and I know this is going to be a really exciting talk. Jonas is also a magician, so there might be a few tricks coming, who knows? Jonas, a warm welcome to Researcher's Desk. I'm going to turn my camera off and I'll turn it right back on again if we have any technical issues, which I'm sure we won't.
Thank you so much, Alasdair. And it's a delight to be here and an honor, really. Okay, so I have the quite ambitious title here, Ecocide Law and Systemic Change. I will touch upon it. And I am very affected, of course, what is happening in the US and with autocrats. And I saw this article that came out a week ago about how to make cases against those that pollute the atmosphere the most. There are many of these coming out. Ecocide law is, of course, one of those also. When we made the reports for the End Ecocide Sweden with funding on the role of ecocide law and system change from time in terms of climate or the economic system and so on. This is one of the publications that I came across from Mirel de Marti, a law professor that summarized the situation as international organized irresponsibility. And I think it kind of summarizes it rather well. The battle, I guess, between the rule-based system and the chaos kind of path. And I have for the few of you in this meeting that doesn't know very much about ecocide law, I have a few slides that talks about it in a little bit. So ecocide law, the idea is to put it as a crime in the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands, and that court is based on the Rome Statute that gives it its mandate, and it regulates 4 crimes against peace. At the moment, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and I cannot see my slide here. Crimes of aggression, and ecocide is the missing. Interestingly enough, ecocide law ties into the economic system in many ways. Genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and also crime of aggression is difficult for the International Criminal Court to effectively prosecute, especially if it's major autocrats like the one we now have in the US and the one we have in Russia. Very difficult. But ecocide, since the economic system ties us so intimately together, it's more effective. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a little while. So it has implications on peace, human rights, economy, and climate change. And we have reports on all, and I have a link in that for those that want to read a little bit more about it. So it's a powerful leverage point. Yeah, this is kind of a duplicate, so strange. And what is it? So it's kind of useful then to look at the definition. This is typically called the consensus definition, and it says, and it's should say that it's produced by these leading experts in International Criminal Court and in the workings of the Rome Statute. Many work actively with using the legal text. So it's really well crafted and got very high international recognition as soon as this came out. So the definition is then unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. So it's an independent expert panel, and wanton is kind of a difficult word for people, I think, that don't speak English as a native language. And it's defined here as a reckless disregard for damage, which could be clearly excessive in relation to the social or economic benefits anticipated. So this word wanton and the definition of wanton in this context is quite brilliant, since one practice, for instance, of a mining practice that is state of the art today, but not perfect, could then be regarded not to be wanton. But in a few years from now, when you have better practices for mines, then that the same practice would be wanton unless it's changed. So it's a progressive mechanism built into it. And I think I should have this slide here. So this shows you the logic of it. So it needs to be acts. Someone needs to have done something, and the Rome Statute is designed in a way that it targets those that have major influence. So not consumers, but those decision makers that have a major impact or influence on the act, and committed with knowledge. And knowledge is something that you should have known or reasonably would have known, and also makes demonstrations effective as a deterrent. Then it is more difficult to say that you didn't know about it. Then there should be a substantial likelihood that is enough. So the damage doesn't have to have happened, but it's enough then to prosecute that the likelihood is substantial. And then it should be unlawful or wanton. And then you can ask, of course, why do we have unlawful? The problem is in this global system that the laws protecting the environment and the communities that raise the issue is many times too weak, although the law could be there. Also, the international network of funding, you could say, makes it possible to sit in Spain and eat your dinner with impunity, although your company or your set of companies create horrible consequences somewhere else. So unlawful or wanton, and then it needs to be severe, and then it needs to be the widespread or long term. So it's so that is what it is, legally speaking. Let's see if I can. So then you could say that there are three things when it comes to system change or shift. So it's a deterrent that is, I would say, on system level, so that the decision maker, it could be the executive or the team of experts that they create the business case. As soon as that comes up, then the discussion would be, if this goes sour or south, I could be prosecuted, and so would you. So it has a deterrent effect before the decision even is made, and it protects ecosystems, the bigger ones, and it has a transformative power, as laws typically does when it comes to changing the normative baseline towards regenerative and planetary economies. I guess I should have had a slide perhaps on rights of nature here, which is kind of a very powerful parallel, you could say, to ecocide law. So ecocide law, it fits into the existing legal system, the international legal system, and it acts like a Trojan horse, you could say, when it comes to transformation. But it doesn't protect the smaller ecosystems or bioregions. For that, rights of nature is a powerful tool, but rights of nature goes further. It directly challenges our worldview and the right of life to exist and develop, which is outside our economic system. And in the economic report, we have kind of a rather lengthy discussion about how the economic system is pushed in many ways and completed with ecocide law when it comes to transatlantic trade agreements and other things that are flawed, typically or oftenly. Whereas rights of nature goes much deeper and protects a sea or a big important river system or forest or something like that. So they're kind of in a complementary stance. And I thought this could be useful, and I'm quite interested in the discussion we will have. So basically the same things here, you could put put it like this instead, to say that you have a horizon. The closest horizon then would be immediate, what you could do immediately or within the system. So ecocide law, contributes, and perhaps it could be an inspiration for other things. But here it would then have a very important role to mitigate catastrophe and minimizing harm. And I would also say that, and I typically say that the energy of ecocide law is hope. It keeps the vision of a better world alive, and it's obviously not the only thing, absolutely not. But it's an important contribution also here. But it's not only that. It also have a very important role in transition. So it strengthens the transformation through innovation and new laws. Ecocide law is one of the examples then, but it's kind of unparalleled when it comes to potential to shift the entire system on the top. And hopefully it becomes more apparent with the soundness of this as autocrats drop their masks and reveal themselves. And I say hopefully, but because I'm very concerned about the role of social media and what happens to the research sector in the US in particular. And then we have Horizon 3, the long term, sustain a clear vision of a world within planetary boundaries, planting basically a compass or compass rose for the societies of tomorrow. And I think this is also easy to kind of forget the importance of planting the seeds. So even if everything would go to hell, basically, Horizon 3 is still important. And also kind of perhaps for the discussion, they are not separate from each other. So what we do here in the here and now in Horizon 1, opens up more possibilities in Horizon 2, which is why hope is so important. And Horizon 2, the transition, is really determining, what the long-term situation will be. So and also having a long-term vision is really helpful in the here and now. So they are kind of interrelated. And why I have this here rather than the more detailed sections from one of the reports is I find that how to handle yourself in turbulent times is kind of a key challenge, and how to keep hope and how to find strength in this. So in this context, I think the Horizon concept or the triage transition long term. Triage is obvious if you speak English, but it may typically is if you have a disaster site. Triage is determining who to save first and who to treat first, and what is really, and in the contemporary time, what is really worth my blood to protect. That is kind of how I see triage. What is really something that must be saved, and it's a kind of a personal thing. I think how to manage your energy and manage your time. And I have this slide, and okay. So this I have this wrong version. So this is triage for me, and kind of a cliffhanger. A lot of my time today I spend in looking at the defense system and the scenarios concerning increased conflict in Europe. And then we have rather a complicated thing to keep the systems alive. And there are many scenarios here, which is apparent in this slide that is connected to the function of society and what happens if we cannot use the Baltic as a medium for transports and have to do other things. But it lost its content. So, but it's triage. So we have a very pressing time today. At the same time, we need to work for the future. Okay, this is interesting for me. These are slides that are a little bit jangled. Okay, so here you have one of my kind of manual things that I go back to, and it's my grandmother, Greta, who was born in the 1920s. Here she came to my daughter's birthday, Smilla, that is on the left, on a bike, which and I think she is about 90 here, 91 perhaps, Greta. And a few years ago, she was turning 100. The world, hopefully, that she was born in the 1920s, they had a situation reasonably similar to where we are today, with techno-optimism, rapid technological leaps, disruptive social changes, and many decades of turmoil. And Smilla, on the slide before, asked me what I thought about some of her friends that said that the world is going totally black very suddenly. And that they were saying that we will die, everyone, and very fast. And I reminded her then that in the 1920s we had mass starvation, millions or hundreds of thousands of people. I think it was 1 point. I'm not quite sure about the figure here, but this is one of the sites where people were fleeing starvation in the 1920s. And then we had the fascists coming, and if you were brown-haired and brown-eyed, it looked like you could be thrown into a concentration camp. And the success of the Nazis they looked inevitable for quite a time. And then we had the nuclear holocaust, where we had to throw ourselves in the bathtubs or under school benches. And now we have planetary boundaries that are crossed. In comparison to these other fears for the future, they are abstract for us. Many of us here in Scandinavia, they are very, very difficult looking at the future. So this is something on top of this. But it still, for me, is, I go back to Greta and think about all the decades she went through with her spirit intact. And to start to wrap up and prepare for the discussion, I have the 3 jewels, which is another thing that I have, on the topic of handling myself in these times. And it's a concept from Buddhism, where they called Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So Buddha is that you look for someone that you regard as have been walking a similar path before you. And in my case, Greta is one of those, my grandmother Greta. So it doesn't need to be the Buddha or a spiritual teacher, someone that has done something difficult. Birgitta Dahl is one of my others that I even asked, how could you continue? And she said, well, it will become better in the end. It always is better, even if it's hard. So we have to just keep struggling. So that's Buddha. And then the other is Dharma. And that is going back to your inner mountain or to your the place of inner knowledge about who you yourself are in the core of yourself. Could also be spiritual experiences or peak experiences that you find comfort from. But really going back to who you are and then rest there. And the third is Sangha. And Sangha is a community that reminds you of what is truly valuable. So that is the 3 jewels or 3 refugees where you could take refuge in a crazy world. And of course, looking back thousands of years, we have had horrible times a lot of the time. So it's also interesting to remind ourselves of, I think. And in the case of Ecocide, there are several sanghas that you could go into and could be inspired just having a look at what is happening. We have the marvelous association and Ecocide in Sweden. We have the Ecocide Law Alliance with me, for instance, being here. And we have Stop Ecocide on Earth. And I put on there page here because it has something that starts with imagine, which I think is powerful, and it is Horizon 3, which is kind of helpful. And it is, I think, all this, but Stop Ecocide is probably the one that is most up to date in what happens globally in this field. And in the presentation, which I think we could easily be sent out or linked, we have the reports. Perhaps we have the QR also for anyone online or looking at the recording. And I thought I'd stop here and invite discussion and kind of detailed discussions if you want.
And a warm thank you, Jonas, for a really, really excellent presentation and very, very thought-provoking. I loved your touch on the comparison with the 1920s. It was a very hope-giving talk. Thank you so much.